3, 2, 1.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Coach Smart will have just a few opening comments, and then we'll take your questions. Coach Smart?
Thanks, Claude. Game week. Excited to have game week, that's for sure. It's been a long time coming, and there's been a lot of things that have happened and transpired since we were on the field last for a competitive game. So I know our guys are excited. We saw a lot of excitement out Saturday and Friday when we started to work on our Arkansas prep. So I know our players are excited. I'm excited. The coaches are excited. A lot of new faces that are going to get their first opportunity to compete at the SEC level. And we're excited to do that. Going against a very dear friend of mine and Coach Pittman, who did just an unbelievable job while he was here. He and his wife, Jamie, meant so much to the community here in Athens and to so many of our kids. You know, he helped build the foundation of what we have now. I'm extremely happy for him for this opportunity he's gotten. And I know he always had a special place in his heart for Arkansas, and he got this opportunity to go back. So he's got two really good coordinators on his staff. I know Barry well, obviously, from the SEC meetings and the SEC experience with him being on the SEC East. And Barry's a good friend and a really good football coach. They did a great job at Missouri. His defense has always created a lot of problems. And then, obviously, Coach Briles is a really good football coach, and you've seen what he's been able to do historically with offenses in terms of numbers. He does a great job. He presents a lot of problems and issues because of the pace in which they play. And a quarterback that we all know, and their kids, and they've got multiple guys that could play, and it's a little bit for us a guessing game over who we'll get to see at their quarterback position. With that, I'll open it up.
All right, let's take the first question from Seth Emerson, The Athletic.
Kirby, I guess I'll just ask about JT. Has he been cleared? Where does that stand?
Yeah, we hope JT will be cleared by Saturday officially.
What can you say about the quarterback situation? Are you willing to give us anything on that?
Yeah, I'm excited about the guys that have competed. They've all done a good job. They've all taken reps. Stetson, Carson, JT, and DeJuan have all done a good job. And excited to see those guys go out and play.
Mike Griffith?
Coach, what about I guess I would just ask you about COVID operations for travel and to game day. What are going to be some of the biggest differences for your team traveling under the COVID-19 circumstance?
I don't know that the actual traveling is going to change a whole lot. I think a lot of people are anticipating major change. The biggest change is that everyone going on the trip will have been tested multiple times, 3 times in a game week, including possibly one the day of travel. So that's the most unique thing. So they're trying to weed out anyone being in the travel party that would have COVID. Can you 100% do that? No, but we can come as accurate as possible. And that would be the goal. But as far as actual travel, I mean, it's not like we're going to be completely in a bubble. We're going to be on planes and buses and transporting the same way we typically do. We just are testing everybody in that party. I hope that answers your question, but there's not like a change in how we're traveling.
Mark Weiser?
Hey, Kirby, a little more about opening up against a Sam Pittman team. Can you elaborate on the type of impact he made on your program? And did you share with him any words of wisdom in the months since he left in terms of moving into the head coaching seat?
First part, we've talked probably more in the last, month, 2 months of trying to play the season. And not just Sam and I, but I mean, coaches in general, the SEC coaches across the board. We've shared texts with guys that I'm friends with and things like that. But Sam, very similar, just how they're doing, where they, what kind of camp they've had, what they've been able to do, and really how you're managing a lot of the issues and problems we've dealt with. As far as what kind of mark he left on our program, I think that's evidenced by the offensive lines we've had. He was a really good recruiter. He was a relationship-driven coach. His players just love him, and they all enjoyed playing for him. And he created that family atmosphere. He and Jamie didn't have kids of their own, but all the O-linemen were their kids and always have been. And that came to fruition for me when we hired him from Arkansas, because every offensive lineman that he had coached there prior to coming back here, he had a really special relationship with, and they tried to keep him there. And we're lucky to get him, and he certainly contributed to our success.
Anthony Dasher.
Hey, Coach. Just one more quarterback question for you. As far as Dwan goes, you just talk about the work he's put in during camp to at least put himself in position to play on Saturday.
Yeah, DeJuan's done a great job. He has embraced every opportunity. He's competed. He's gotten better. He's very talented with his feet. He understands what we're asking him to do. I think he's done a great job preparing, and so has Carson, Stetson, and JT. They really all have done a good job preparing for this moment, and I feel comfortable with all those guys.
Chip Towers.
Coach, could you let us know what are some of the real issues with facing a staff that, has a few members that just came off of your staff? What are some real issues that you have to address when you're facing somebody with that much familiarity?
I don't know that there are any real issues, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't put a huge, premium on them having been part of the organization. I look at it as, they're coaching their team, we're coaching our team. There's not a lot of trade secrets in football. You got to be able to block, you got to be able to tackle, you got to be able to communicate on the field. We have a different offense than we had last year, and a lot of the connection to our program was through the offensive side of the ball with Coach Pittman. So I'm not looking at it as those guys that were here last year being an issue for us there. They're doing the best job they can to prepare their team, and we're doing the best job we can to prepare ours. And it usually boils down to what the players do on the grass, not what we do as coaches.
Dean Legge.
Kirby, as it relates to crowd noise or just ambient noise or whatever, what are y'all preparing for? Are you preparing for a lot of pumped in noise, and how much do you think the tens of thousands or whatever the number is will affect y'all on the road?
I don't know that we have a complete grasp of that. We know what they're allowed to use in terms of decibels, and we've practiced with that noise amount. We practice from time to time with music and different things on just to change it up and try to get used to and acclimated to those things. So we understand the rules of what you're allowed to pump in prior to a snap. Don't really know how to gauge what that number of people might actually be able to create. But if you're prepared for crowd noise and the levels that we've played at in the past, we feel comfortable that preparation will cover what we're going to have in this situation.
Jake Rowe.
Yeah, Kirby, I wanted to ask you about your receiver situation. You said back at the SEC championship game that you indicated that wasn't up to par last year, wasn't where you wanted it, and you said that it was on you to kind of get it where you wanted it. How have you been impacted, I guess, by the way those guys have practiced this preseason and what you guys have coming into this season?
I think they've gotten better as a group. Anytime you lose the juniors out early that we lost the year with Riley and Miko, you end up with a little bit of a hole. We've tried to fill that through recruiting. Certainly think George had a good year last year, and the players that we're developing have developed to become better. Kieris, Matt, and then we've added some freshmen that have added to that. And we're getting better at the position, and we continue to get better at each and every position. But that's one that we got to continue to grow at and prepare for.
Charles Odom, AP.
You opened by saying it's been such a long time since you've played. Was it awkward at all having a couple of weeks to watch other teams get going? And did you learn anything by being able to watch those games?
Yeah, it's probably been a little awkward just watching games and having not played one. It's like having an open week and then another open week, and it's like, when are we going to play? And the date's set, but it's just unusual to have everybody start before you. Maybe not NFL, but definitely in the college ranks to have a couple of weeks. And we've tried to use that to our advantage. We've taken clips from college games, pro games, and try to use those situations that teams are in to educate our players. And to be honest with you, they enjoy seeing that as opposed to just watching practice. So the idea and the thought of a game highlight and a game situation to learn from is certainly good for us to be able to do that.
Brandon Sudge.
Hey, Kirby, following up on the
Sam Pittman questions from earlier. Like, so when you guys hired him, like, did you ever see potential for him to elevate to a head coaching role? Because I know from O-line coach to head coach isn't the most common thing. And then also, can you recall I suppose, like a memory or a story that you have with him that showed maybe how, because you said that his players were like his family. I was wondering if you could dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, he always had the traits of a head coach. Number one, he's a great leader. He's a great person. He commands the respect of a room when he speaks. He's very, he can be very emotional, and you don't always find that with the offensive line coaches. They're usually a little rough around the edges, and Sam wears his feelings on his sleeve. He's very open with his players, and I think he lets them in more than most O-line coaches do, and that relationship really stands. And it was seen. I always thought when our kids spoke, when our offensive line would get up in front of the team and speak, they always talked about their relationship with Sam and how they felt about him and how they cared about him. And when he got the opportunity to go, a lot of our guys reached out. They were hurt by it, but not hurt like they were mad at Sam. They were very thankful for his opportunity, but they were going to miss that relationship.
Let's go to Jillian, red and black. You have a question?
Yes. Hey, Coach. So although this is only the first game of the season and there's going to be things to work out, the schedule really picks up after with those tough SEC opponents. So why is this game so important to setting the tone for those more difficult games down the road?
Well, mainly because it's the first game. I think the first game is your first opportunity to create your identity, to figure out who your leaders are, to figure out who we're going to be on all three phases. You don't define that moment until kids have some adversity or go out and get some butterflies. And for so many of our kids, really the bottom half of our roster, the younger half, freshmen and sophomores, a lot of them, it'll be their first opportunity to play in college football and in this atmosphere. So I'm certainly excited for them. But we know that this is one game of many we've got to play in a really tough road. But we're focused on this one and this one only.
Vance Levy?
Coach, I know you teach composure every practice, every game, but with the lack of or the less practices and the excitement of these guys finally getting to hit somebody else, how much are you concerned about your guys keeping their composure and how important is it? And then finally, have you made a decision on the place kicking and kickoff duties?
Yeah, composure is always a very key ingredient, and it's always a concern of mine. I don't think – I think those spring game opportunities and scrimmage opportunities are your best chances to mimic something bad happening to a kid or, maybe a late hit or something just undisciplined that cost you big in big games, which is why we've tried to show them clips of other people doing it. That doesn't prevent us from doing it. That doesn't prevent a young kid from making a mistake, but usually composure is a little bit mimicked by maturity. And the more mature you are, the better composure you can keep. We certainly hope our guys can do that. And as far as place kicking, it's still not final or kickoff duties. We've got a good competition going there. It'll probably go out all the way through this week.
Let's go to David Pascal. David, you there? Okay, let's go to Zach Klein. Zach?
Coach, maybe take me back a month or two ago when the Pac-12 and Big Ten at the time canceled their seasons. In your heart of hearts, did you actually think you'd ever get to this day, game week?
Yeah, I never lost optimism based on the decisions they made because I was going off of the information I was getting right here in the SEC from Ron and the medical staff and Commissioner Sankey. I think they've been very open with their communication with us, and the optimism has always been there. So I was always looking forward to it. Didn't know exactly what the date would be that we would get to it, but I felt comfortable we would get there.
Emily, do you have a question?
Hey guys, Coach, nice to see you. I'm glad that we're all finally here. Demetrius Robertson, can you just kind of tell me, it's his senior year. I know he's probably looking for a big season. What have you seen from him this offseason leading up to game one? And do you expect him to take on a bigger role than last year?
I'm excited for D-Rob. He's a player that has improved throughout his time here. he came in and probably wasn't as physical as he'd like to be in terms of the SEC. He's gotten faster, stronger, bigger. He's able to do more things. He certainly understands our system. He's a good leader. He helps on special teams. So I'm excited to see what he does this year and excited to see what he takes on. I'm excited to see all those wideouts.
Let's go to Mark Schleybaugh. Mark, you there? Unmute. Okay, how about Jeff Schultz?
Hey, Kirby. In addition to everything else you and every coach have had to deal with this offseason, you also had a presumed starting quarterback opt out halfway through camp. I'm just wondering how much, if at all, did that set you back and potentially at least could impact you in the early part of the season with the offense?
Well, with the rotation we had going, it probably didn't impact us as much as it would have had he been there the entire time. We had mini camp days, I call them 1 through, I think, 10 or 1 through 11, that he wasn't able to go in throughout the first half of those. The later part is when he got there. So we were able to give those reps to other guys, and we're probably fortunate that it happened when it happened in terms of trying to get a guy ready, because if it had gone, up until this point or even later, I can't imagine where we would be. But those reps would have been doled out between the other guys, so they certainly would have got more. And it was a concern of ours when you start thinking about spring practice not being there, being able to get the reps. But we've got to go with what we got, and we're excited about what we've got, and we got to do a good job because we know that whoever it is not going to be a guy that sat there and played in a lot of football games, especially at the SEC level. And we got to be able to manage that, and we got to play to our strengths. So that's what I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see a lot of these offensive players that got to play against Baylor go out and play with a new quarterback.
All right, let's go back to Mark Schleybaugh. Mark, you there?
Yeah, sorry, Claude. Kirby, what is it about Mathis's personality that enabled him to come back from what he faced a year ago?
I think he's got great composure. He's never been a real emotionally up or down guy, which I think is a pretty good trait at quarterback. And you look across the 4 guys we've got; they're very similar in that none of them get really high or really low. And they've had good days and they've had bad days out on the practice field where they made through bonehead interceptions or took sacks in 2 minutes they couldn't take, and none of them have handled it the wrong way. And Dwan's the same way. I mean, going back to his surgery and his craniotomy, he's been so resilient, earned the respect of so many people with the way he managed it and the way he came back from it and the way he worked last year. And he's been a model of consistency in terms of staying the course and continuing to work. With a lot of the stuff has been out of his control. I mean, he hasn't been able to control what the doctors said he couldn't do.
All right, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Let's just open up for anybody that wants to jump in and ask a final question or two.
Coach, could I get your thoughts real quick on George Pickens, and just as you get ready to start this new season, how you feel like how far he's progressed since last year?
I think he has a really good grasp of the overall entire system. I think at times last year, he was a guy that you had to put in a certain place and really explain what to do. I think he understands a lot more now about the bigger picture. What route is the other guy running? What is the coverage? What does the coverage do to change my route? How do I affect the play? Am I the primary on this play? Am I the secondary on this play? He has a better understanding of all those things, and that's important to the rest of our offense. And George is a talented player that can make us better in other ways than just catching the ball.
Kirby, how will y'all adjust your recruiting strategy now that you can't have kids on campus and you know that you can't have them for the rest of this calendar year?
I don't know that it'll adjust at all because we never fully expected to be able to. The only thing that's certain now is that won't happen before January, but I never thought it would anyway. So we were proceeding as if we were not going to be able to get those kids here anyway. Now, I think the reality is more kids realize now they won't get that opportunity, and they had hope that they would, but we certainly didn't feel that.
Got time for one last question, anyone?
Kirby, how would you assess the job that Zamir White and James Cook have done sort of going about this offseason and replacing DeAndre Swift and Brian Arian at running back?
Well, I think it all starts with the Baylor game. You know, unfortunately, James didn't make it long into that game before he got dinged up and got injured. But building up to that game, there was a body of work of practices where he'd done a tremendous job, and Zamir had a good game in that, and they've both been really good leaders. The big thing for both of them is getting more conditioning, more stamina. I'm going to play more snaps maybe than I had in the past. What is my role on third down? DeAndre did a lot of the pickups, and Brian Harry did a lot of the pickups. So those guys get ample opportunity to go against us every day in practice, where they get to see a lot of looks and work on pass pro stuff.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.
I think we can take me on. Where am I? Sure. All right, thanks.
All right, everybody, if you'll stay tuned, we'll have the student athletes available shortly on this same Zoom.